didn't exist. I loved that story. I just absolutely loved it. And after that, I began branching out into comics, and I'm a mega nerd, right? I love all this stuff. And I wanted to start doing a superhero-themed story, and this idea of a world where people started gaining superpowers, but only evil people got them. That was really fascinating to me, because it became this question, right? Was it that evil people were getting the powers, or was it that the powers, once you had them, corrupted you to the point that it was impossible to use them without turning evil? Does absolute power corrupt? Absolutely. And so I ended up writing this book. Well, I ended up writing a prologue to this book that I named Steelheart, but I didn't have time to write the actual book because I had the Wheel of Time on my plate at that point, which was a little bit of a kind of big project. And so after finishing the Wheel of Time, the first thing that I jumped back to doing was the end of Steelheart. That book came out last year, and the sequel is coming out, I think they've scheduled it for January 6th or 4th or something like that. And I will read a little bit to you right now. I watched calamity rise. I was 6 years old then. As I stood in the night on the balcony of our apartment, I can still remember how the old air conditioning rattled in the window next to me, covering the sound of my father's crying. The overworked machine hung with its rear end out over a plummet of many stories, dripping water like the perspiration from a forehead of a suicidal jumper. The machine was broken. It blew air, but it didn't make anything cold. My mother had frequently turned it off. After her passing, my father left it on. He said he felt cooler with it running. I lowered my half-eating popsicle and squinted at that strange red light which rose like a new star above the horizon. Only no star had ever been that bright or that red. Crimson. It looked like a bullet wound in the dome of heaven itself. On that night, calamity had blanketed the entire city in a strange warm glow. I stood there, popsicle melting, sticky liquid dripping down around my fingers as I watched the entire ascent. Then the screaming had started. "David?" The voice came from my earpiece. I shook out of my reverie. I had been staring at calamity again, thinking of the past. But over 12 years had passed since calamity's rise. I wasn't a kid in my father's apartment any longer. I wasn't even an orphan working in the munitions factory in the understreets. I was a reckoner. "Here," I answered, shouldering my rifle and crossing the rooftop. It was night, and I swore I could see a red cast to everything from calamity's light, though it had never again appeared as bright as it had on that first night. Downtown Chicago spread before me, surfaces reflecting starlight. Everything was steel here, like a cyborg from the future with the skin ripped off. Only, not murderous, or, well, alive at all. Man, I thought, I really do suck at metaphors. "I don't see anything," I whispered, kneeling beside the edge of the rooftop. I wore an earpiece that connected wirelessly to the mobile that was stuck to my upper left sleeve of my jacket. A small camera on the earpiece allowed Tia to dial in a view of what I was seeing, and the earpiece was sensitive enough to pick up what I said, even when I spoke very softly. "Keep watching," Tia said over the line. "Cody reports that Prof and the Mark went your direction." "It's quiet here," I whispered. "Are you sure?" The rooftop exploded just beside me. I yelped, throwing myself backward as the entire building shook, the blast spraying bits of broken metal across me. Calamity, those shots packed a punch. "Sparks," Cody yelled over the line. "She got around me, lad, coming up on your north side." His voice was drowned out as another glowing pulse of energy shot up from the ground below and ripped off the side of the rooftop near where I hid. "Run," Tia yelled, like I needed to be told. I dashed away. To my right, a figure in black materialized out of light. Dressed in a dark jumpsuit and sneakers, Sourcefield wore a full face mask, like a ninja might wear, and had on a long black cape. Some epics bought into the whole inhuman powers thing more than others. Honestly, she looked ridiculous, even as she did glow faintly blue and crackle with energy spreading across her body. She could travel through solid matter. It wasn't true teleportation, but close enough. If she touched something, she could transform into energy and travel along it. The more conductive the substance, the further she could travel. So, a city made of steel was kind of like paradise for her. It was actually surprising it had taken her so long to get here. And if teleportation weren't enough, her electricity abilities also made her impervious to most weapons and let her throw out energy blasts. The shows she gave off were famous. I'd always wanted to see her work, just not from up so close. "Scramble the plan," Tia ordered. "Prof, John, report in." Abraham? I listened with only half an ear as a globe of crackling electricity whizzed by me. I skidded to a stop and dashed the other way as a second globe passed right through where I'd been standing. That one hit the rooftop, causing another explosion, making me stumble. Broken bits of metal sprayed my back as I scrambled to the side of the building. Then I leapt off.